this morning.
Recording in progress.
Michelle loves being put on the spot. That's awesome.
Well, you know what? She's an adopted Canadian. So, her philosophy, she runs a great business and likes to sit in the background, but she's got all this wisdom just tucked away and she just doesn't share it very often. So I thought I'd put her in the limelight.
Is there a particular thing you would like me to shed light on?
You know what? I know that you were at Whistler, and I just know that you have been really good at having a focus in business and being willing to shift a focus and keep a focus. So, sort of where you're at today, and sort of your mindset and what you're focused on.
Well, I just actually shared this with Wilbright this morning. I keep like this running list of the things I want to accomplish this year. So I always do that in the fall. And I have, my vision board is right there next to me. So I'm just personally focused on the future. That's what I just try to focus on. So in my little tiny world, we're in the middle of, we just bought a house and I waited a really, really, really long time. Jim Coker had given me wisdom that I should be a cash millionaire before I buy another house. I bought my house when I was a single mom and I was a teacher. So we've lived in that tiny house. Some of you here have been there. It's not that tiny, but I mean, it was a perfect house for a single mom with a child. And so I renovated that house. We still have contractors in there. I've renovated it twice now. And then we just bought a new house and we got contractors in there. So we're in the middle of that, and we're living out one of our second dreams this summer. So it feels like I'm unfocused this summer, but I told my upline, Chris Royce, this is my summer of Jubilee. So we're taking my pastor and his wife to Scotland at the end of the month. And we're just really, really excited for that. And then September 1st, it's hit the ground running. So it's calling business owners and doing those meetings with retirement plans and getting those set up. And then I have a huge client event coming up the beginning of October. So designing that, implementing that, getting the invites out, getting the word spread, and scheduling reviews. Like there's no secrets. It's just what Ben always tells us, right? Like book your schedules, stay full, but enjoy the journey.
I love that you have a purpose. And I think a lot of people come in here, they don't have a purpose. They don't have goals. They don't have a direction. They kind of think that things will just automatically happen. I know, Kelly, you just went over a major milestone, and was that by accident or was that by purpose?
Honestly, it's from years and years of laying that foundation, right? And making progress in your business. So we just actually bought my parents' business this year. So I've been splitting time between two different codes. But in my code, I've been laying that foundation since 1999. Opening up nets, opening up $25 packs, opening up a ton of different client accounts. And the last 5 years, I've been really working that existing client base and spending time with them and finding money and getting referrals and making sure my calendar is filled. I think that's what, if we want to increase our income, we just need to increase the hours we work. And that's what I set out to do a couple years ago. And we jumped 2 diamonds this year because of it. So anybody can do it. It's a kid from McDonald's back in the day. Deciding I'm celebrating Jeannie today. Jeannie went over 4. Let's talk to Jeannie. Celebrate Jeannie. Congrats.
Jeannie, it is so exciting. All you ladies are hitting major milestones. And Jeannie, you've got purpose. Talk to us about it.
So I actually, I wanted to share a quick story about that, because what you were asking, Kelly, was that on purpose? It's always on purpose, right? It doesn't just happen. But I really believe, and I know a lot of people on here believe the same thing, that if you just keep planting the seeds, the harvest comes, right? Like your abundance is going to come. You don't have to nickel and dime people. You don't have to be like me. So interestingly, this month, the big pop was a $600,000 annuity. But before I even knew I was closing that, we split a $300,000 trade with a downline. He had no idea it was getting split with him, but if I followed the client all the way back, it came from somebody he recruited a while ago. And then I split a max app with another downline, and he had no idea that was happening. But again, if I followed the client backwards, it came from a referral from somebody under him. And I just feel like if you do the right thing, you guys, and then I don't know if the maniacs on here saw Jimmy Meyer's message on Telegram this morning, but you just got to do the right things and don't worry about yourself so much. Like, I feel like sometimes it's like, oh, it's all about me going to another diamond level. It's all about me getting jewelry. It's all about me getting my promotion. It is not about you. You've got like, and if you're functioning that way, you're probably not going to get very far. You got to make it about your clients. You got to make it about the newest person, and you got to do the right thing by those around you, because what success is a few simple disciplines repeated and practiced every day, and failure is a couple of errors in judgment that ruin your reputation. So, I mean, just keep the focus off you. It'll be a lot more fun of a ride, you know?
Sounds like you read The Slight Edge. So, and that's, everybody should read that book by Jeff Olson, Slight Edge. So, that's awesome. Hey, Eldon, if you can make Barry a co-host, we got a lot of shows on today. Jeannie's you don't have to move anywhere. Jeannie's gonna be in the main room talking about using the CRM and building your business with the CRM, mining the gold out of that. So that'll be an amazing class. You don't have to do anything to get into that one. Kurt, you're talking to Dana today. What is Dana?
Actually, Dana is talking.
Dana's talking. Okay.
Kurt's name is on, but they're actually going to get Shane Morris. Shane's got a unique perspective. Shane worked in the Primerica home office, and he worked with Tracy on developing the whole managed account program when he switched over from Freedom. So he's got a great insight. And I just had him up here speaking at an event for us. He gives a lot of value, and he's trying to help people grow their business, not grow Dana sales. So it will be very good. If you never heard him speak before, you're going to truly learn things. I promise that.
Awesome, awesome. Barry Andershak, good to have you, buddy. Barry is sitting in Victoria, British Columbia, in the nicest house in all of Canada. He's got a 270-degree view of the ocean. In fact, you might see whales swim by his house today. So,
wow.
I came by yesterday. They came by yesterday, but six of them came by.
Yeah, and so,
Right there.
hey, if anyone's in Victoria, Barry, you can just stay at his place. So, anyway, Barry, 7 fundamental. You're talking about setting appointments today.
Yeah, whatever you want. Yeah, absolutely. If I know most of the people are all skilled up in that area, but I thought that they're all. How do we get some of our people to get better at setting appointments? How do we teach them our style? So yeah, we'll cover the new people, how to set appointments that are on the call, and then how team leaders can get their people on more appointments.
Yeah, love it, love it. So, Vito, how to make $100,000 a year
as a part-timer.
As a part-time, yes, because that should really be the part-time income. That's a regional leader income in our business now, isn't it?
Yes, and that's the reality, because we have to have confidence that, and I'm going to show it as a district leader, how can you make 100,000 and just doing like $500,000 in securities a month, personally, with your pen. So the most important thing, and we're going to look at the statistics, 401ks, depending on what generation, if it's generation millennial, how much do they have accumulated? No, so Empower and Fidelity have good statistics of 2025. So we're going to show that to motivate people that if you get securities license and you're fully licensed, no, you just have to have a big dream and go for that dream. You have to have a purpose, what they said yesterday. If you don't have a purpose in Primerica, you won't make money. But if you have purpose, no, you will make a lot of money.
Love it. So if you, is this going to be in Spanish, this class?
Yeah, I could do Spanglish.
Oh, my
Fidelity
goodness.
part is
So
going to be in English.
I can tell you a lot of people are thinking, man, I need to get into that class. So, so hop in if you want. You can always figure out how to translate or learn Spanish in the process. Scott Fletcher, today, making money with 403Bs. What are you covering?
403Bs.
Okay, so
You know,
makes-
I'm like, so, you know, I get every week, I get texts and emails about people who are trying to get into the market and figure it out. And I just figured we would do it again because it seems to be on the top of some people's minds.
yeah, I love it. So, Mark Drake,
Yes, sir.
usually this is very unusual. You and Scott usually, you know, you don't compete for classes. So this is going to be interesting. We're going to be seeing who likes who better. This kind of a like high school test. So what are you talking about today? Sell your class.
Literally, there'll be more people in Scott's class. So,
I was thinking that too.
yeah, I know you were. Say it. So, I'm going to be talking about creating an investment solution using managed. I'm going to come at it a little differently. This particular subject, it might be a little bit of a contrarian viewpoint, but it's my thought process and why I choose the options that I choose. And so it's going to be taught at a high level dealing with managed. So.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, Bonnie,
Hello,
what
good morning.
turning beneficiaries to clients?
Listen, every piece of business that we do generally has to have a beneficiary on it. What are you doing to build your business through the beneficiary realm of how to get more clients? I'm a big believer in beneficiary certificates. I'm going to be talking about that today, how to deliver those and how to use that to expand your business. Listen, I'm in Gillette, Wyoming. We got 30,000 people. It just takes a few last names and my cabinet can be pretty full with a couple of last names. You just need to know how to do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. We're going to open up the rooms right now. If you don't have FOMO, you should. That's the purpose of this. Somebody asked me, well, why is there so many rooms? And I'm like, well, we're target training. Next week, you can get on and learn the next thing if you want to. But Bob Safford told me one time he used to run 10 training rooms in his office. He said, because he wants people coming back. And you got to give something for everybody. And I think today there's something for everybody. Congratulations to Jeannie, went over $400,000. She's going to be in the main room. If you and she's going to be talking about mining the gold in CRM through your client revisitation. You don't have to do anything if you want to stay or be with Jeannie. Also, if you happen to, I don't think he's on today, but Dave and Kelly went over $1 million 2 days ago, which is a huge accomplishment, and so we're really proud of them as well. So I'm going to open up the rooms right now, and we'll see everybody in about 55 minutes.
Brad,
right,
didn't you also go over 1.1 last month? That was last month?
Yeah, but
Okay, we'll get in. I just had to make a few people co-hosts on the other side. So anyways, we'll get going here. But so today we just want to talk a little bit more about things on the FIN number side. And I know that when we start talking about the FIN number, people say, well, that's the Fanatics, Larson hierarchy, and so on. And I think a lot of times people, they like the concept, and but there's a lot of fears tied to it. And what happens today is that I just want to kind of talk a little bit about the FIN number concept and some of the challenges, some of the structure, some of the things that come up, and where people have a challenge with it. And what happens today is we're going to have a conversation and teach you how to have a conversation with your clients. And I think that I know Doug's on here, and he's the master at this, and Cody Beckett, masterful at this. We got a lot of people that are a lot more masterful at this than I am, but I think if you understand the building blocks behind this, it will make things a lot easier for you to go forward. And so what we're going to do, I'm just going to end up sharing, I'm going to do some PowerPoint, then I'm going to draw on my screen, and then, you know, we'll do some stuff with calculator side of things as well. So let's go from there. So I think a lot of people know this slide, the theory of decreasing responsibility. And, you know, this is put out by the company, right? And okay, so these are the titles that are listed on that, and it's pretty simplistic. And, you know, I've just added in here how, hey, there's got to be a focus for a financial independence number for retirement. That's what needs to be there. So this is sort of the company's way of having things. And so I want to shift this a little bit. And I didn't worry about, you know, there's a few extra things not on the right timing, but we'll get through it here. Today, young children, high debt. I think that all these different categories, people have house mortgage, but I think some of the things that don't happen in conversations is that there's the squeeze generation that are supporting parents, supporting their children. They've got into a crazy debt situation, and we're talking about people need to have money. They better have money someday. And, you know, the company says, okay, well, the children are growing, lower debt, mortgage is paid. Why don't we just put a maybe behind that? There's so many different scenarios. And so I think these blanket statements are a little off. And so one of the things too that you notice on here is a lot of times when people look at these two lines intersecting, you will automatically want to put age 65 at the crossroads. Age 65 actually is shifted to the right. This theory of decreasing responsibility line, actually, it should be offset a little bit like this. People are living longer and longer. And I think that if you're going to become masterful working with clients, you have to have a good understanding of this space between age 65 and 85 or 90. And how do you have the conversations today to deal with that down the road? So let's talk a little bit about some of these aspects. So the conversations that you have, the questions you ask, they're very important. I think we get into this business armed with a lot of knowledge, and we want to do a lot of telling, and we're not very good at asking. And so how do we go from a telling standpoint to an asking standpoint and have those conversations? I want to talk a little bit about this. I don't know if this is hiding on for you guys. Okay. But let's talk about average income by age bracket first. So data suggests a clear correlation between age and income, with earnings generally increasing through their career trajectory before declining somewhat in their later years. And now this is pulled from the Bureau of Labor Statistics in Q4 of 2024. So that's pretty accurate information. And so I think, you know, when we look at it, you know, people 16 to 19 years old in their part-time jobs are making on average 35,000. Then they start getting into a real work environment, get this medium income of 40,000. And then as they get their advances and their career gets moving, they get up to 59,000, and sort of in their prime peak years of 35, 44, the average income is 70,512. And then 45 to 54. Look at this. It starts to actually decline. They want to pay people that are a little younger more because they're going to get more out of them. And then 55 to 64, the median income is actually just under 66,000. And then age 65 and on, the average income is down to 60,000. And so I think if you get used to living in a great lifestyle of 70,000, and then you have a lifestyle under 60, you know, who's going to work with people, who's going to help people in these situations. So so I think a little bit of the struggle for a lot of people is understanding how to use a calculator. We want to just take this where a calculator is not something that is going to be foreign to you, but how can you use it in a simple effect? We're going to go through some things in PowerPoint, but then I'm gonna do a drawing. I'm going to have the calculator on the screen, and I want you to feel it. I think I can show you a lot of slides, but again, we will post all of this stuff so that, you know, on the investing years, all the numbers are positive except future value is a negative. That is correct. That's how it will show up on your screen. If you're entering number of years, it's going to be positive. The interest is going to be positive. The present value is going to be positive, and any payment is positive. If you're working with a future value, you got to have a negative sign on the investing to make everything work correctly. Some of the basic things where people get tripped up on this is everything that you do for number of years, interest and payment, it's all got to be in years or it's all got to be in months. So everything's got to be the same. Same if you're working with loans or retirement, your input's going to be this way. So inflation, doesn't matter the age. Show the effect of inflation and show an index chart, because it actually will show people the real deal as far as inflation. And so it's very easy to go through and just show people. Now, this is just a quick slide. I know that most of you have seen us do this a lot of times, so I'm not worried about going through here detail for detail right at this point with inflation. But somebody age 30 years old making 80,000, by the time they hit age 65, it's going to take 266,000 with a 3.5% inflation. And typically when I draw things out, I generally do age 85, not 90, but on this illustration, we're just showing at age 90, that same standard of living with inflation. It'll take 630,000 a year to live on the same as 80 today. And so our job is to show a reality check with people, but how do you do it in a soft way? And what happens here is that people get to this part of, hey, I can draw out inflation, but then when it comes to a FIN number, where do we go with that? How do we handle that at different ages? It's one thing setting a FIN number at age 30 versus setting a FIN number for somebody at age 40, 50, 60 years old. And these are some of the challenges that I want to talk about today. So these are the things that come up. How come my FIN number is vastly different from the FNA? It's a concern, right? If you're going to draw something out, you want your one-line presentation, you want that FIN number to come out pretty close to how the FNA is. And I'm going to show you an example of that today. The other thing is, how do you draw a solution for someone close to retirement, but they've saved very little money? And, you know, we can't be miracle makers, but what we can do is we can understand a situation, and I'll show you how to work with that. And then how do I work with people that are older and they have a lot of debt and little savings? And I think debt trips a lot of people up and they wonder how to work with that in the equations. And then what if my FIN number is going to be way too large for them to ever achieve? You know, you get scared. You get somebody that's 60 years old and all of a sudden you show them a $3 million FIN number is what they need. They need 3 million of savings, and they've got 300,000, not 3 million, and they've got 5 years and they're going to retire. You're going to lose your credibility. How do you deal with these situations, and how do you be really smart about it? The FIN number is still accurate. It's still, but I think sometimes people are getting the wrong FIN number put down. So let's talk about setting your FIN number, right? So age 30. Again, working with those same numbers. We did this with an FNA and kind of went through it and then just put it back onto PowerPoint. And how did the FNA come up with this? On a 6% withdrawal rate out of an FNA, it just works out that whatever they needed at age 65 was almost 17 times more when it was calculated in the FNA. So you could say, Eldon, so if I just take that number and did 17 times and I did a 6% withdrawal rate, I would get there. Yes, that would work. But what happens, I think a lot of times people forget that this is a concept. We want to actually map out and give them a concept, and then the FNA is going to give the other details. But how accurate can your concept be? How close can it be to the FNA so that you keep your credibility? And so let's just talk about getting to this. So if I was drawing this out and I did it with my calculator, here's how it happens. I've asked the client, and we're going to go through some more questions on this, but let's start with this one here. The client's got $50,000 today. They need 2.2 million. And so let's just take a little look at where they're going and where their track is. If their money was growing at 3%, nothing added, they'd have 140,000. At 6% growth on money, they would have 384. If their money grew at 9%, they would have 1,020,000. Now, that's almost half of what they need. And so at this point, if you were only showing 3% and they only were going to come up to 140,000, people are pretty depressed. You can see how that you can start to give some elements of hope when you start to map out these numbers. Now, with the calculator, we'll go through, but we can show quickly and say, here's what you would need. If you need 2,222,000, you would need to save 1,600 at 3%, or you'd have to save 848 at 6%, or you would have to save $426 at 9%. Now, I did this with the calculator. We'll come back. We'll show you how this maps out using a calculator. But what happens when you plug these same numbers that we had plugged into here? If I go all the way back to here, somebody with a $40,000 a year income, how does it map out in an FNA?
Clients once a year. So
Well,
I could put in a
we got some
in my CRM,
other people doing some chatting.
you put a task, now they call it a task now. So if I open,
Okay. Let's separate that. So the numbers again, income goal today is 3,300. The future with inflation at 3.5% is 11,200. Is that pretty close to what we had talked about before? So 11,111. We're very, very close on those numbers, right? So we're taking the same time frame, and look what we get down here. So we get a financial, sorry about that. We're getting a financial independence number of 2,155,000. On our screen, we had 2.2 million. So this comes back and actually makes it look a little bit better. You gave a worst case scenario when you drew it out, and then, oh, wait, you got it. You don't even, you need to save 100,000 less than what I mapped out. And you need to put away $339 a month to get there. And what was our number? Our number was 426. So very, very close. Is it exact? No, but if you understand how to do this, you will end up having a lot of credibility. So here becomes one of the challenges when you're having a conversation with somebody and they go, I am not retiring at age 65. I'm going to move this back to age 55. Now, if you're a very literal type person, you're going to grab your calculator. You're going to say, okay, if I follow the same format of 40,000 today with inflation, at age 55, I'm going to need $94,000 a year. Age 90, need 315. So then what happens here? Do I use the same 17 times rule? Do I use a illustration of, oh, well, it's roughly 10 times I'll use 10 times as a concept, and that makes it so that you need $1 million a year. I think this is the challenge where people have right now, is saying, how do I work with people that want to retire at different ages, not just 65, how you've mapped it out, Eldon. And we want to talk about that. And so let's take a look at what the F&A actually prints out for a client in this exact scenario, wanting to retire at age 55 with the same lifestyle. So you can see up here, age 55, retirement age. The financial independence number is dropped down to 1.8 million. And they need to save 1,203. Now, it's very frustrating for people because they don't, first of all, generally, if they're making only this kind of income, number one, they can't save $1,200. So are you going to destroy their hopes and dreams? No. What happens here is that instead of age 55, we want to talk about this, and we'll draw it out as well. But age 55, do your illustrations at age 65. And then if they want to retire at age 55, if they had 2.1 million at age 55, they would be okay, right? The company said that they'd be okay at 1.8. But I want to talk about these concepts. And so people need to know a complete picture. So I think one of the things that happens with the FIN number is that we're doing an actual calculations. The computer did an automatic calculation of 17 times what they were going to need. And I want to run through some thought process of how to think about this for retirement. So when you're having a conversation with a client, and you talk about someday when you want to quit working your job, you want to be retired, you want to be free, are you expecting Social Security to be your form of income? And they will say yes or no, but you need to be able to fill in these blanks. Are they going to have rental income? Are they going to have any pensions? Are they still going to be employed? Are they going to have annuities? Maybe they have a business and they've got business income that's going to be coming in. And some people are point blank counting on inheritances. So these are some of the things. Now, all of these are different sources of extra income. And so you either could have a bucket that said, well, I need 2.2 million to retire. But if you had income coming in from this side, do you really need 2.2 million? Thank you. So let's talk about how this works. Now, you're going to need to have access, copy these down. We'll put them in all the chats and the forums. But for getting some of these numbers and filling in some of these blanks, in Canada, you need to know your MyCRA site, and you need to be able to log in. You need to find out what you're going to get. There's also the link there for the Canadian, all the pension side of things. If old age security, anything that's related to retirement from the government is there. In the US side, you should know your IRS account. Go in there, set up an account, and then also the Social Security link. And so on the US side here, you should get every single one of your clients logging into here so you can get whatever is posted on their account for their numbers for Social Security to put into that box. So let's take a look at this picture. So let's say I have a client, both husband and wife, they both worked pretty similar, and both of their numbers, they get on the site, and each of them is going to get about $1,500 a month at age 65, just for illustration's sake. And let's just say that she's a nurse, she's been working all these years, and she's got a pension through the hospital, and that pension's going to pay out $3,500 a month at age 65. They don't have any other employment, annuities, or business income, and they weren't expecting any inheritances. But if we worked off this scenario that they were going to need $11,000 a month, all of a sudden, wait a second, we can minus $6,500 off of what they really needed because it's coming from Social Security and pensions. So then we come to a real number of they're going to need 4,611. And I think this is the conversation that's missing a lot of times, is camping out and understanding what the client's really going to need in retirement and what they've got coming to them, because that's a big difference. You trying to get enough investments for some people where they're going to get 11,000 when really the real number boils down to 4,600. So hopefully that makes a little sense for you. So I want to take you to this picture. The original picture for this client, if they needed $11,000 a month, they would have needed 2.1 million to sustain that kind of cash flow and income. But look at what the other number is. They actually only need 750,000, growing at 7% a year. And, oh, sorry, that didn't change this number, but drawing 4,611, the money will actually last 32 years. So you can see the difference between a FIN number of 750,000 for a client versus 2.1 million. There's a big difference for a client, and a lot of hope and a lot of strategy. And so I think some of these large numbers are coming because the conversations weren't started. And so whether you're 30, 40, 20, 60, whatever age you are, this is an important conversation that you need to have. So let's talk about dealing with people in the spending phase. Their FIN number looks a little different, right? Because they need X amount of dollars coming out every month. And just so that you can have a philosophy, and we've done a full seminar on this, we can do another whole one where you've got all the variables. But if they've got a certain amount saved and a certain amount coming out, you should be able to run a rate of return. And so if the bucket is growing at 8%, they never run out of money. If the bucket's only growing at 3%, they're going to run out of money in 23 years. If it's basically just in a money market account at 0.5%, it's going to run out in 17 years. Understanding this simple illustration, and we can go on with a lot of other illustrations with this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this over here, and let's just talk about some of these things. I don't know if, you know what, let people unmute and ask any quick questions here before I get into phase two. We get into talking about the structure and the conversations behind this FIN number.
A good question about the FNA was, you plug in CPP and OAS in Canada, does that reduce the FIN number on the main page?
Yes, it does. It does reduce the main FIN number, and because it's a FIN number is a target. And so, yeah, your accumulation to get to your target, the number does lower. Any other questions on that?
I haven't heard of asking about or having them get an IRS account online. I know the Social Security, but what's the, I guess, purpose behind them setting up an IRS account?
Your IRS account is going to give you the information, especially for tax returns. So your access to what you've paid for taxes and that information. So there's a bunch of information going in that side. I think we should probably run a Canadian and US class on sort of, I would take you into my own account, right? I know that's all against all these privacy things, right? But I think giving you an understanding, or doing a blocking out all the pertinent numbers, but taking and showing you what's in that site But everybody should log in, should have access to their own IRS account, even if they're just paying taxes, or a lot of times the accountant just says, hey, do this and this, and we just do it. But there's some knowledge behind there.
Thank you.
Hey, Eldon, this is Bernard.
Yep.
Hey, so quick question. So you said go times 17, all right, if they want to retire at 65, which I get. But I think I missed when you said if they want to retire at 55, how do you figure that out?
Okay, let's draw some pictures on this, because I think this is, and I had failed in replying back to you on this exact same question, right, Bernard?
Yeah, that's right. So when I saw you're on here, I said, oh, this is perfect.
Couple things here. Number one, we're going to talk about, when we do a one-liner, it's a concept for clients, and it gives a framework. It gives them an understanding. The F&A will nail down the final. It will give the more legal, it gives the compliant version to the client, right? But how do we teach the concepts? Number one, let's talk about what I do. So my roadmap, I always start out at 20 years old, because that's the conversation. I say you start working roughly when you're 20. People are told that they're going to retire at age 65 and they're going to live to age 80, 85. And so there's my initial ruler, my initial framework. And also from that point on, then what happens is then when you ask a client, and I'll get back to that point exactly to your 55 here in this conversation, Bernard. But when you ask a client, let's just say, for example, this client is 50, the wife is 48. I'm going to ask, do you have children? Yes. How many children do you have? We have 3 children. How old are they? We have one that's 23. We have an 18-year-old, and we have a 13-year-old. Wonderful. Are they all at home with you? No, actually, our 23-year-old is married. So what about your 18-year-old? Well, they're in college. Do you have any grandchildren? Well, yes, actually, our 23-year-old, they have 1 child. So whether the children are at home and they're still under the same roof as the parents, or they've left, it doesn't matter. Even if I was doing this for somebody that was 70 years old, I would say, how old are your kids, right? Well, got one that's 50 and I got one that's 46 and whatever. I think knowing about people's children and those scenarios and what their plans are and do they support them, this family dynamics can get exposed, and you can have a great conversation if you are willing to sit down and find out about that. So when you're running inflation, so when it comes to the income, and let's just say, for example, okay, he's making 75,000, she's making 25,000. And so combined together, they're making 100K. And if we go 15 years here forward and we show inflation, my conversation to the client is that I'm going to show you what happens over the next 15 years with inflation at 3%. And so when we do this, let's just clear these numbers here. Now, we're dealing with 15 years, 15N. And we're going to run 3% a year for inflation. Our present value is 100,000. We're not adding any money to this. We just want to know what the future is. And so you can use round numbers. I wouldn't worry about using 155,796. I would just round it out and say it's going to take $155,000 a year to roughly that number and that number are the same. Same standard cost of living. Now, I don't know if your plan is to retire at 65, then now becomes the conversation and say, hey, are your plans to work longer than this, or you plan to get the game over a little bit quicker than this? And so, for example, Bernard, you had said to me, you'd said, well, okay, we were working with a client that this number was 55. Always do this. Always run to 65. If you run to age 65 and you run out your financial independence number here of what they're going to need. Now, it's very easy to do 10 times rule in your head versus 15%, 17%. You could do it. You could take 155,000. You could times it by 15. You could times it by 7, whatever. I'm going to talk about running a concept. I'm going to say, let's just say, as far as a concept, if you needed to have 155,000, it would take 1.55 million growing at 10% to draw the interest off. It'd be 155,000 a year, and you'd live the same as 100,000 standard of living as you have today. Now, I don't know if you have the 1.5 million or not. And you start to chuckle, they chuckle, you start to get into that, and oh, we'll never have that. And I think, when you start doing this, then what happens is then you go, okay, so let's just talk a little bit of how things look down the road. Are you expecting to live on Old Age Security Canada Pension Plan? For the US, it's, do you plan to live on Social Security? Are you going to have any rental income? Do you have any other business income? Are you going to get an inheritance? And do you have any annuities? Or you have enough savings? I think all of these different pieces in here, once you find out these pieces, then you could say, how much do you expect to get from this, this, and this, and this, and this? It's going to totally affect your number right here, right? And if that number is affected, then your FIN number is going to be ultimately affected, right? Now, if you have if you're going to need 1.5 million at age 65, well, coincidentally, whatever number you need at 65, that number works for age 50, 55, for whenever they can get it on this timeline. Whether they got it here, they got it here, they got it here, 1.5 million actually will work for taking them through. So that's where the magic happens on running age 65. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good then. So just run till 65.
Just run age 65 and say, hey, I know you're a go-getter and you want to make it happen. Coincidentally, it's about this, the number equals about this. If you have that amount at age 55, that'll actually work. That same number is the number. And so, yeah, it's just on how you set up that and concept. So for you, I'm not telling anybody that you got to use a 10 times rule for doing this, for taking the annual amount up here and doing it 10 times. But if you want to keep things simple and you want to explain a concept, that's one real simple way of having a concept given to them. Let's talk about people's financial house, okay? And where we're 939. Okay, so I think that if you thought in terms of this, where everything should be in cash flow, everything's controlled by cash flow. Cash flow in business, cash flow for our clients. They either have enough money to pay the bills or they don't. They have things taking it out, right? And they have certain risks. Number one is that they could die too soon, and that's why they end up having insurance. And another risk is inflation. And then, hey, they could live too long, right? But what is my financial house really doing? When I'm sitting down with a client and I start to ask questions, I draw out this financial house. This financial house is split into two parts. Number one, I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm going to start with what they have for assets. And eventually I'm going to get to the top of this little financial house where I'm going to find out about what they have for debts. A lot of times people will tell you what they have for assets and debts, and you don't have to get into a lot of specifics. But for example, they'll say, okay, I've got $80,000 with my company, and that's in a 401k. And she goes, well, actually, I think mine's a 403b. Okay. And how much do you have both? Now, some company, so now you start to get into specific questions. In Canada, right? You know, you're going to have, what do I have in RSPs? What do I have in TFSAs, tax-free savings accounts? All these things. Make a list, make each number, and then just make the list. And then ask, do you know what kind of growth you're getting on it? No, I don't. Or they go, yeah, I'm getting 5% on it. And just make a quick note on it. They're telling you information that's going to help you down the road here. How do I transition from this part, from assets to debt? What happens is that people's homes, if you take a look at their house, I want to know what their house value is. And so their house value becomes, I jot down what the house value is. And then that takes it over. Do you own your house? Or do you have a mortgage on it? And then now I can have a mortgage number. Then I can ask, do you have any other debts other than your mortgage? And I can start to make that list. This is really important for understanding because, you know, when we talk about the theory of decreasing responsibility, we've always talked about insurance coming down like this. You know, this is a reality is for most people, this is also their debt line, right? And so you got to take on a large mortgage to get a house. You know, you've got to get a car loan. You've got to do different things to survive, get going when you're younger. But eventually, as your assets grow this way, your debt side cycles down this other way. And so I'm just trying to give you an idea of these conversations. And let me quickly take you to somebody that's 60 years old. Say I sit down with somebody that's 60 years old, they got 5 years and they're going to retire. How do I have a conversation? It's easy to deal with somebody that's in their 20s, 30s, and into their 40s. But you talk about a mature market. Let's talk about how to deal with that conversation. So nothing changes as far as the concept of one line. This is a picture of life. The only thing that happens here is that if somebody's 60 years old and you go, okay, well, and, you know, they tell you that you should, you know, be able to be free at age 65. You should live to age 80, 85 years old. And so then you ask them, how much are you bringing in for income now? Okay, I'm bringing in $120,000 a year. Okay, so where does that leave us? If we start to look at inflation at 3%, even in 5 years, and, you know, I can run these numbers really quickly, right? I can do 120,000 as my present value. I can run 5 years, and you should do this in front of your client with the calculator on your phone. And 3% inflation, nothing added. It's going to be $139,000 a year in order to keep the same standard of living. Inflation doesn't stop just because you do, right? And so you've got 5 years here and you got another 20 years here. And so the total in your calculator will be 25 years because we're working from age 60. We're not working 65 on. So I'm always looking at that number. And so then it's going to be 251,000 is what they're going to need to keep the same lifestyle. Now, if I just didn't have any conversations about what is it going to look like for income? Are you going to have old age security? Are you going to have the Canada Pension Plan? Are you going to have any Social Security? If I didn't have a real conversation, I just did a generic, okay, yeah, this is what you need for a FIN number. And I just did a 10 times rule, then I'd be printing out, well, you need 1,390,000 growing at 10% to live the same way. And then we get into this conversation. So number one, all of a sudden they say, I need 1,300,000. In their head, they're like, I don't have 1,300,000. And they start to tune you out. So this is why big numbers, you got to be careful. And because it might not really be that they need 139,000 coming from investments. You say, out of that 139,000, are you going to have any money coming in that's going to be supplementing that 139? Let's start to have that conversation. And then we can get to their financial house. Now, I'm going to run some really quick numbers so that we can get on with some of this concepts. Let's just say they're 60 years old. They had done some refinancing on their house. And so coincidentally, they still have debt of over 200,000 and they're paying out on average with all their debts 6% on this debt. Now it's going to chew at them that they're going to be 5 years from retirement. They got 200,000 and then all of a sudden he goes, well, I've only got $400,000 worth of investments and they've been averaging 6%. So now you've got a predicament with a client, right? Are they going to make it? Well, if you took this line and you said, okay, let's take a look at where things sit. This is a reality check at 6%, 8%, and 10%. And I know our F&A only goes to 9, but let's just work with these numbers quickly. If they had 400,000, I'll plug these in so you can see it. 400,000 of a present value, and we're still dealing with 5 years, and we want 6% growth on money. And if, let's say, we're not adding anything to it, that client is going to end up having at 6% growth, he will be at $535,000. If he could get just 2% more, he'd be at $587,000. And at 10%, he's at $644,000. Now, you might not be able to change their whole situation in some ways, but if they're not getting proper growth on their money, and you could show them and say, here's the difference of what maybe 2% could do. Are you open to exploring those options? We're not going to sell on, I'm not selling on returns, but I'm just saying, if we could, this is the difference. I'm exposing them again to a concept of why I care about working with them and improving their life, right? What happens if you went from 6 to 8? What happens if you went, just hypothetically from 8 to 10? What kind of a difference would that make in your life, right? And all of a sudden he comes back and says, well, maybe I've got 500,000, or maybe he's got 600,000. In those scenarios there, I'll quickly just map out what those numbers are. And let's just do the 600,000. At 600,000, he would be at 803,000 for growth. At 8%, it'd be 881. And at 10% is 966,000. So you can see there's a big difference there for this client. Now, what happens if the client said, What happens if the client says, no, I want to take this 600,000 and I actually want to wipe out this 200,000 and I don't want to have any debt. And then I'll just go back living this way. There's a better way to do that. I think you need to know with a financial calculator how to lay out some of these scenarios. Number one, if somebody's older and you're dealing with debt, you need to be able to stretch that debt out for the longest period of time that you can. If it's a 20-year, 30-year, whatever, because debt is just a payment, right? They can't pay it if they don't have money. So they need money. Debt's not a problem as long as you got the cash to pay it. If you work this out, if you had 200K and you are paying 6% on that money, your payment is going to be $1,370 a month. So if they invested that 600,000, so he says, I'm not going to pay my dad off. I'll leave the 600,000 and that 600K invested at 10%, we'll shortcut it here. He would have $923,000 hypothetically, right? But if he had wiped out the debt and he had dropped this account down to 400,000, that number would have been 615,450. There's a $307,550 difference between here and here. And so what happens is that you are, if you work these numbers right here, the difference is going to be $22,000 a year, what you're going to be able to draw off that money. And if you're paying $16,000 a year for debt, well, I would rather keep an extra $5 in my pocket. So it's just one way of looking at it, saying, hey, you need to have money working for you this way and as much of it as possible. And then you can service your debt out of it. And eventually you'll bring this down. Maybe they are going to downsize, sell their home. Take a look at every scenario for readjusting their debt situation or earn extra income with you to supplement it. And that's just a different way of looking at this for retirement side of things. So I don't know if I lost you all on some of that, but some of these concepts, I think running a proper FIN number, for this same client up here, if I had found out that actually this client actually only really needed 60,000 instead of 120, and my FIN number was dropped down to 700,000, how do you have the conversation to do that? And again, I think one of the things that we'll post this, having a conversation. We have this all in here. I did update the questions in here about asking the names of their children, if their children are married, all that side of stuff. But then when it gets to the FIN number, what do you have saved now? What's your hope for the future? Do you have rental income, employment, business income, annuities, some of that stuff? So I think some of that stuff is important, as well as I think you're missing, if you were asking those questions, the documents that you're going to pick up from your clients you're going to get their tax returns. If they have a business, you're going to end up getting all their business documents. Do you have buy-sell agreements, profit sharing plans? Are you going to sell a business and you got a cash infusion someday? Are you going to, if it's a farm, how are you going to sell it to your children? There's scenarios and situations like that. The FIN number is very important, but it's based on a conversation. So anyways, I'll stop doing a share here. And I don't know if there's some questions that maybe I can answer or Doug can answer or something that maybe you have in your mind.
I have a quick question. I've been doing a lot of manual adjustments and checking how the FIN number works and how the mobile FIN. I've come to the conclusion I will never use the mobile FIN because it comes out to be about 3 times the difference in the FIN number when you result with it. Is that uh, you agree with that, or is that it's just too many things?
Yeah. Also, too, is that I think it's important. You don't have to show 91 pages of a financial needs analysis, but if they have debt, you need a debt page and you need a real debt page. But then you need the investment details. I do the full financial needs analysis. I'm never lazy on that one, but I think the clients always go back to what we showed for a concept, and I can always take the F&A's numbers and I can sketch out and put the F&A numbers on a one-liner and say, this is what I showed you for a concept. This is what the F&A came out. But then they see the same picture and they understand it on one page.
Okay, so the mobile one just doesn't do that.
No, it's quick, it's fast, it gets people started. It's okay if you're in your 20s, 30s, it gets them started. And but what happens is there's the mobile one spits out some quick answers, but it goes to the head, it doesn't touch the heart. If you have a full conversation, you finding out about people's kids, you find about their work relationships. Are they going to keep working there? You need to really be able to really take some time and get to their heart, because you're building on trust. And then they look at you and say, oh, well, if you're asking these kind of questions, you care and you're competent. So you're going to get the money.
Yeah, but the mobile one doesn't give you enough information. And it came out to be a 3 times factor difference in the FIN.
Correct. So they are redoing. So everything's being redone for the F&A. We're still probably a few years out from it, but the F&A is going to the online, the full web version and the mobile version will be one and the same. They're going to be modules that are plug and play, but it's going to be app style, and then they'll both be accurate. Right now, they're 2 separate programs. It's not a mobile version of the full version. They're 2 different programs totally.
Yeah, so it's too basic in my idea.
Yeah. So
thank you.
Kudos to you for calculating and figuring it out so that you don't end up with egg on your face and you can understand it for your clients. Any other questions before we end up probably getting kicked back to our main room? I know that we cover these things really fast, but don't be afraid to actually, map this back out. Take the time to work with the calculator, draw some simple things on a piece of paper, because the FIN number is going to be, they're going to want to own it. It's going to draw them to it. They're going to take responsibility for it. And then you can just work as a coach, updating them and keeping them on track. But when they buy into a FIN number, they're going to buy into it for being financially independent, and they're going to love you. It's the only way you can give them hope and opportunity. So we're going to break back and close out the last 5 minutes in the main session, and hopefully we're able to give you some stuff of some value today.
Looking good, Eldon.
Thank you.
Eldon, if we're still here,
yeah.
The most confusing thing is that calculator. Is it run on your computer, that MPI thing, or is it actually?
It's run on my phone.
It's on your phone. Okay.
Yeah.
Beyond old 50 years, we can't work the numbers well.
Yeah, I know. And so we will do some more on the calculator stuff, on just running scenarios with the calculator. That's no problem.
Thanks, Eldon.
Yeah. Okay, we'll see you all over in the next room.
Yeah. Gina, you made a good point. If you run your business compliant when it's little, you build a a foundation of running a compliant business. And, and I always tell people, never leave skeletons in your closet.
Mm.
Do things when you're not making much money. Don't do things when they don't seem to matter that much that nobody will notice. Because when you build a business like we've got, where you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and something in the past can get you. So be compliant. Compliance is there to protect our businesses.
Absolutely.
And protect our and protect our reputation. The last thing we want to do is wake up in the morning and see a newspaper article about some Primerica rep in another city who's splashed on the front page of a newspaper because they did something stupid. That hurts all of us. So that's when the auditors come and compliance sends you letters and compliance is in your, but believe me, and Jeannie, you know, you're a lawyer, you know the legalities of all this stuff. Every single rule the company has a name of someone attached to that rule. Somebody did something dumb and now they have to have a rule, and that's the way it is. But you can build a great business within compliance, right, Jeannie? And it's a multi-million-dollar business that we're building that you're trying to protect.
Yep. No, it's critical. It's really, Jimmy Penn says all the time, compliance is everything. You got to be compliant.
Yeah, they're not the enemy. They're protecting us from a lot of outside forces and inside forces that could ruin our reputation. Amazing show today. There was so much content. I don't know, Vito's still on you there, Vito? He might have left. A lot of people are saying, is Vito going to do that class in English? And I'm like, well, maybe you start taking Spanish lessons. I don't know. But we've got some amazing leaders coming up. Chris Royce is joining us in a couple weeks. We've got so many. Joe Ward's going to be on. We've got Lisa Jones coming up in a couple weeks. So we've got a lot of classes that we're going to be doing. And if you had FOMO today, well, join us next week, and Barry will be back, and everybody will be back talking about that. So Eldon, why don't you close it out for us, bud?
Unbelievable job. I love the dedication and the focus of the leaders here. I appreciate you, Brad, that every week that you don't let it slip as far as tying people together, making sure that you'll go to all ends of the earth to bring the best of the best in this company. It doesn't matter who you are from any end. We're bringing the best of the best in all areas of the business here. And so we're a field-led leadership team. And so Brad's always doing tons of stuff behind the scenes. And, we've got Ben and Kurt and the whole group that are there's constant communication going on. This show, what you see in one day, there's communication going on amongst a group of leaders every single day to bring you what you got. So appreciate the home office for allowing us to do that and to run this show, and also for the people that are answering all the questions in the background, and for all the people that actually put their foot forward and actually run and do these rooms. They're doing the homework in the background, but we need more people, and we should be double the size. And so, there's no better training than this. We just appreciate everybody jumping on. We hope you put it to work, and hope you buy Brad's book A Damn Appointment, because that's how everything works. And that's where the success is. So anyways, we're looking forward to more numbers so that it's not just, Jeannie going through 400, 500, 600,000. I did pick on Brad for going through 1.1 because I know that it burned him so bad that he's going to 1.2. And I love seeing his success. And a guy that dedicated to helping other people, they always win. And that's the motto for this show. So anyways, have a fabulous week and look forward to seeing everyone here this next week.